Hi everyone, my name is Keith and the goal of this channel is to help you achieve true generational wealth. In today's video, we will be going over what I think are serious concerns that Tesla shareholders should know about that could possibly impact the company over the long and the short term. The first part are the Tesla superchargers. The question here that we must address is, are the chargers a liability or an asset? An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money away from your pocket. I like to keep it simple when thinking about money management. For those of you that have been to China, or even for those of you that possibly haven't even been to China, in terms of population, China is huge. Land is becoming more and more scarce in China as it develops over time. China is 4 times that of the United States. So when we compare superchargers to NIO's battery swapping, we identify and solve Tesla's physical supercharger problem with NIO's battery swap and go business. Tesla could take half an hour to charge your battery, and with limited space, since the Chinese people are building up in terms of living quarters, there would be quite a bit of unhappy customers waiting in line for charging. This, in terms, would create what we like to call a bottleneck and an unsustainable business method of charging for the long term. For NIO, we only need to wait 3 minutes and the battery would be swapped and you could be on your way. So let's revisit the question of whether Tesla's supercharger are a liability or an asset. Now, what happens if that customer leaves your brand or decides that it is more convenient for them to purchase NIO? We could actually see Tesla's brand be hurt in the long term to customers that move over from Tesla to NIO. This, of course, would be reflected in Tesla's stock price in a major way since it is currently priced to perfection, not to mention the very costly infrastructure of Tesla's multiple superchargers that could cost an average of $300,000 USD to Tesla's installation, whereas NIO could cost around $1 million, but can pump these battery swappings out quicker and more efficiently. So to answer the question, at least in the China context, I see NIO battery swap and go service as a big asset and maybe even a moat, whereas Tesla's superchargers will be a major liability in terms of infrastructure cost that could work against them, maybe even like Chevron and Mobil, how we saw people move from basically oil to EV. To elaborate, ExxonMobil was investing heavily in deepwater drilling and now has future commitments to those projects which are weighing down on future profitability. This has caused the stock price to plunge because, of course, as we know, the adoption and emergence of clean tech in EV, as well as the COVID-19 pandemic taking a toll on oil sales. This is an example of a company investing into capital extensive infrastructure that they thought were assets when in reality actually turned out to be liabilities. These major projects became detrimental to ExxonMobil's balance sheet, and as a result, they are now burning through cash to pay for useless giant oil rigs. One thing to keep in mind is that Tesla had actually thought about this battery swap idea in the past and failed to implement it. NIO, on the other hand, is using what we call a blue ocean strategy to differentiate themselves from their competitor in an attempt to steal market share, and so far is doing a pretty good job about it. The second part are government subsidies. For those of you that don't know, a form of a subsidy can be government credits being given to a company for basically promoting or abiding by a government directive or a law. In this case, Tesla was given massive government green subsidies in the form of credits to which they were able to sell back to GM and Ford for polluting the air, and in return they were able to realize these massive profits. The problem here is that in China, the government is handing out subsidies only for EV companies that implement battery swapping. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking that this is unfair to Tesla or other EV car companies, but in fact, it is China's way of addressing the population problem they foresee coming. Interestingly enough, if Tesla were to begin using the battery swapping method themselves, they would have to pay NIO for basically borrowing the technology in a form of a kind of licensing agreement that would have massive implications for NIO's top line revenue, as Tesla would be dependent on NIO because of NIO's multiple patents in this technology. Lastly, it is important to keep in mind that NIO has not even begun selling these credits yet, and has actually been accumulating them for maybe a more strategic use of them. It could be since the next few quarters, when we talk about car sales, are a bit more slow because of that cyclicality in sales. This would enable them to bring in more revenue ahead of their competitors and have a huge leap forward. Remember that NIO is holding a secret weapon in the form of credits and has been accumulating for some time now. It makes the thesis even more stronger, and that is why I believe investors are overlooking this. Finally, to top this off, I want to talk about China in a more top-down approach and take a step back and look at the big picture when looking at history and how US or other European companies have performed in the Chinese global market. We can look at a few instances where big US companies failed in China and why that was the case. For those of you that don't know, a Chinese company called, and forgive if I'm saying this wrong, Taobao, it is basically doing the same thing as eBay back in the day. Jack Ma made a comment when he compared Taobao versus eBay. eBay may be a shark in the ocean, but I am a crocodile in the Yangtze River. If we fight in the ocean, we lose, but if we fight in the river, we win. Today, Taobao has completely annihilated eBay and is currently owning 90% of the Chinese market in e-commerce when competing in the same space as eBay. So let's take a step back and see what eBay did wrong. eBay failed because they did not use their due diligence and address the needs of their audience that they were targeting. Remember guys, we might be in the United States or Europe used to one thing, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is the same way something would be of value to someone in another country in which they might have different needs as us. Now, I want to talk to you guys about something that I love and has shaped me in business. It is a book that is completely relevant in today's business world by the name of The Art of War, which talks about a different strategies in which Sun Tzu was able to defeat legendary armies in battle. The book states that on the topic of whether to attack or defend, it is actually easier to defend than to attack. So what does that actually mean? Does this mean Tesla is going to prepare an army of employees and charge NIO headquarters with bayonets? No. That actually means that in the business context, it is NIO that has a home turf advantage. NIO CEO William Li Bin has lived in China his whole life, studied and paid attention to what and how the needs of the Chinese people have evolved over time, and has more experience in these markets than Tesla. This in no way should underestimate Tesla's ability to adapt, but when looking at The Art of War, it states forces, which that being Tesla in this case, can successfully attack a defensive position only if they are strong enough to break through. In other words, if Tesla doesn't come to the Chinese battle with anything new, it is already in an unfavorable position against NIO, which is in its home turf. We must remember that many companies have failed because they try to impose the Western way of thinking to China and will try more or less to shove the products down their throat. But now that China has become a more developed nation, they are becoming more self-sustainable and able to make new and tech things for themselves that address their own needs. After all, who better to sell than you? Only you know yourself better than anyone else, and anyone else, if trying to sell you something that you know you don't want or need, is going to be seen as an annoyance, and you simply may just decide not to purchase it. At the end of each video, I will be leaving a comment for you to read that I believe is valuable in business and in life in general. This comment goes, strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. What could this mean in terms of NIO versus Tesla? Is Tesla making a lot of noise and hype, whereas NIO is strategically positioning themselves to become a market leader in the EV space? Let me know what you guys think about this quote and how it applies to NIO versus Tesla. Anyways, this is all I have for now on this topic of why Tesla will fail in China. Thank you guys for sticking around and watching my first video to the very end. If you have any areas that you think I could improve upon or have any topics you'd like for me to cover, please do not hesitate to reach out in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. See you guys in the next video.